Bundeswehr Lieutenant Franco Albrecht is currently on trial for a supposed terror plot. I have already made one video lining it out roughly, what he's accused of, namely toppling the state and blaming a Syrian refugee for it. It is a very weird, far-fetched accusation, and in this video I'm going through the details of the evidence, what we are presented in the public, as to why this man had to be arrested and set in prison for more than half a year, for 7 months, between the 27th of April 2017 until he was released on the 29th of November in the same year. So I had already made this one video to kind of line that out, and I use this one to explain the details of the evidence that are presented to us, and in the future videos I will also explain the connections to the other members of his group, or what is supposed to be his group, and his thoughts. I mean, I do not believe that freedom of association or freedom of thought should ever be restricted. They are human rights for a good reason. But outside of that, I will follow all the path of what he is accused of, and what his friends or contacts, not even friends, but contacts, are accused of. And I will also speak about the cultural context in later installments of this series. I hope you enjoy it. Also, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe my videos. This helps me a lot with the algorithms and, of course, with the distribution of my material. The far-fetched accusations were already dropped in 2018, but as I said, he's currently standing trial again. The story that a Christian with a Jewish name is trying to topple the state with an attack that, as it is also said, was supposed to sound to look like an Islamist terror attack with a Wehrmacht pistol. That story was so out of the box that the Bundesgerichtshof, that is our highest court outside our constitutional courts, it's the highest court in the country on the same hierarchy level as our constitutional courts, but it isn't constitutional, has dismissed all of this in 2018. And they are now building up that case again because they cannot let go of him. Of course, in the meantime, while there is a police investigation, Franco Albrecht does not speak in public. He's basically deprived of his basic rights to his opinion and to his participation in the public sphere, and all of it, with no end to it. So it all started with this arrest on the airport that I've already laid out in the previous video, and after that, 90 policemen from the states of Bavaria and of Hesse, as well as of the federal police, and some Austrian and French authorities have raided 16 accommodations where Albrecht resided, and also some of his friends. Albrecht had a refugee home accommodation, as well as his military base room in Ilkirch in France, and his home in Offenbach. So there are some properties they had already to raid, and also his brother-in-law Max Tischer, who he was attending the military officer ball in Vienna with, and is seen as a sort of accomplice, had also his property raided. So they seized mobile phones, laptops, and a number of written documents, which are presented as evidence. And what they have found is a handbook for guerrilla tactics and an Islamic bomb construction manual. I have no idea what makes a bomb construction manual Islamic. It makes no sense at all. but that's what the media reports. So I just assume, okay, they have found a guerrilla tactic book and also some manual of, how to build a bomb, which in my book is not a crime. It's not. It's knowledge. It should become knowledge, in my opinion, anyway. During the raids, they found illegal guns and ammunition. They found a 3G Heckler and Koch, a Landmann-Preetz rifle, and a firearm of the Fabrique Nationale Hestal in Belgium. There were also explosives and detonators. Of course, he committed a crime, and yes, he should be duly punished for it. But I also feel that these crimes shouldn't be crimes, and we should work towards liberating our gun laws a bit. There is, we are seeing a decline into a conflict, and it's very likely that people need to defend themselves. There will always be ways to build explosives, most certainly. Everybody finds some chemicals that burn quickly and so on. There's no way this should be and could be regulated duly. We are not talking ABC weapons, of course. But there is just, there's just as much as one can do. I will have an entire video talking about the cultural reasons for this to happen, why Franco Albrecht is in such a trouble, and why we allow our elites to become so nervous, and how this is okay that they display this nervosity and disarm us, punish us for their own nervosity or nervousness. Apparently, I do not know, where they have stashed this particular set of guns and ammunition and the detonators that I've just mentioned. But Franco Albrecht has apparently also handed some guns and some ammunition to a former friend of his, whom he met already in school, I believe. At least he was a youth friend, and he was rowing with him in his spare time for some time, and that is Matthias F. Before Eastern 2017, he was also handed ammunition and detonators and explosives, namely 1,083 cartridges of ammunition of various calibers, among which there were 885 for the gun model G36. That's a different model from the G3 that you've just heard, Heckler and Koch guns, and a submachine gun of the type MP7, 9mm caliber pistol ammunition, and tracer ammunition. That was all stashed in his student dormitory in Friedberg, Hesse, where Matthias F. was studying at the time. Of all the ammunition that I've just mentioned, none of it actually fits into the gun that he has found in the bush after the military officers' ball in Vienna. Still, the attorney is claiming that he was using that very specific gun, or was trying to use that very specific gun to topple the state. It's silly enough. And I just have to mention that as well. The second piece of evidence for his supposed terror attack, outside of the ammunition and the guns, is some notes, some paperwork. And also in this paperwork, there is absolutely nothing that is referring to that vintage gun that he has found. I don't know what connections these people are making, but they try to construct that story around a vintage gun, this non-matching ammunition stashes and pistols and guns and so on. They also do not match each other. I think a lot of these bullets do actually not match any of the guns that they have found, plus a number of papers. So the written part of the evidence is 2 sheets of paper found at Max Tischer's home. Max Tischer is, again, his brother-in-law, at least, I mean, I do not know whether his sister is actually married to Franco or whether she's just his girlfriend. But there was this phrase, they have founded a family in Offenbach, so I just assume they are married. So his brother-in-law, Max Tischer, had 2 sheets of paper, and there's also one handwritten paper they found at the home of Franco Albrecht. There's also the mention of a calendar, and it's not quite clear what is scribbled on that one sheet of paper. It's a handwritten paper, and what was somewhat scribbled in that calendar of his. The 2 lists do not actually match well. There's only one entrance that they share. Outside of that, Max Tischer's list seems to includes a number of organizations, and it has, without any meaning that's beknownst to anybody outside of Mr. Tischer himself, the 4 letters from A to D. What they mean is completely unclear. He has already been cleared of any terror charges. It's too far-fetched that he had any serious involvement in anything, really. And then we are left with some hand-scribbled notes that are either on that calendar or on a sheet of paper. And these include some politicians like Claudia Roth, the rocker group, motorbike group Osmanen Germania. That's a Turkish group which he describes as, or which he notes is a Turkish-led army. They are probably a mafia. I have not looked into them, but there are a lot of biker groups that actually act like mafia clans, or in in truck trafficking, human trafficking, and so on. So that might be about that. He also mentioned the Central Council of Muslims, the Central Council of Jews, and the Amadeo Antonio Foundation, a very, very dubious foundation that is taxpayer funded or co-funded. Absolutely ridiculous propaganda outfit, like the ADL, but also like more like the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center. It's that kind of outfit. They are making a lot of fuss. They are constantly quoted, appear everywhere nowadays, and they live from taxpayer dollars or euros in our case. It's completely ludicrous, this organization, and so is, at this point in time, the Central Council of the Jews. That's silly. They also receive taxpayer money in this day and age. Also, they are just actually mouthpieces of our government. They are not the representatives of Jews. Neither is the Central Council of Muslims a representative of Muslims. It's just they are sometimes government funded. With the Muslims, they may be funded by some outside state, some state that's different from ours. In any event, that were the groups and individuals on that scribbled paper or calendar that they have found. And they have constructed now a terror plot with that notes. It does not involve the vintage pistol, but still they try to go with something. They just connect some dots, and this horrible Amadeo Antonio Foundation is apparently under threat from Franco Albrecht. At least this is what is to be constructed at the moment. They also quote as evidence 2 notes from the police investigators, one from the 3rd of May and the other one of the 18th of December, both in 2017. That was about, some months after he was arrested in February 2017. And these notes include photos on his Samsung Galaxy mobile phone that he took from the cars in the garage of the Amadeo Antonio Foundation. He was probably nearby and thought he should maybe collect some information on them. He also did some drawing. That was one of the notes, some drawing of the surroundings. Now, this is not terribly helpful, the latter one, because we have now Google Earth, and it's probably easier and quicker and more efficient to simply print off something from Google Earth. But he made some drawings and he shot, I think, only 2 photos of the vehicles in the garage. Why did he do that? Probably because the foundation is not really a foundation. It is a state-sponsored intelligence kingpin. It also has a board member that is the head of the Intelligence Agency Verfassungsschutz of the state of Thüringen, Mr. Stefan Kramer. So there are intelligence agency connections to that foundation, quote unquote, and this foundation could, in the event of a potential civil war, become a headquarter of sorts of the opposition or of the enemy, right? And he is a soldier, so he is strategizing and making tactics for that potential scenario of a civil war. Now, preparing for a civil war is not the same as making a specific plot to assassinate somebody, but it can, of course, include the idea, the thought play of killing somebody if he turns out to become your enemy. That does not mean that we are already in such a situation or that we want such a situation. That would be indeed a terror attack if you strive to kill somebody, okay? But if you're just preparing yourself for that very situation that you have to kill an enemy, that is a very different thing. And then, of course, you are collecting information, and that again is okay, is perfectly fine. This is what you expect of soldiers, okay? This is what you expect of security personnel. Now, I will have a different video talking about his connections, the chat groups he was in, and people who are also accused of terrorism charges, and they all are accused for preparing, for thinking about what they would do in the case of a civil war, which we are heading to right now at the moment, if things do not become better again. And this is the most normal thing in America. And of course, I will also have this last video about these differences. This is a perfect normal thing in America and everywhere else, that you prepare yourself for the situation of a mortal conflict. And you expect particularly those people in security professions to think about this very closely. So they have found pictures of the garage. They have found some drawings which are lesser alternative to Google Earth. And in his scribbled notes, they found a supposed route he may take, and he might use his motorbike, a Suzuki GS 500 EU. That's not the European Union, that's the model of the Japanese motorbike. And he may ride from Offenbach to Berlin, where he is handed a shotgun. And from Berlin, he would then, after the murder of the leadership, probably Annetta Kahane, but then that's not mentioned. I believe it's just after not even just a murder, but that's even the wrong word in that scenario. If you are in a civil war, the killing after you have ended that operation, he would then take the motorbike to the military station near Strasbourg, which is in Ilkirch. And from the Elsass military station, he would then take a car to Bayreuth, and from Bayreuth he would drive to Baustarring at Kirchberg, where he was granted this asylum home room in the county of Erding in Bavaria. There are also weird notes in it. I think some of this is just being overthought. They are just scribbles. I think they look like shreds of thoughts he had here and there. And there's also some aspect of it which is not taken into account. We are all getting really angry. I have very violent fantasies, I must say. I'm open to admit. I'm very open to admit I did not make any notes. But people are different. Some people scribble stuff, they draw things. Some people talk to themselves. We have all our outlets for our aggression, and of course, as we are constantly being presented as potential mass murderers and fascists and blah, 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 we get really angry, okay? So people find their outlets, and I could kill her or something is not yet a murder plot, okay? And people have these outlets. What is very clear from this motorbike car ride scenario is that he did not really plan much. This is not a thoroughly planned operation. It would be good if he, as a security personnel, would think through it in a more detailed manner. But so far, it seems to be more like a stress relief and some thought play and some notes. But they are very random and very far in between and not really detailed. And what also comes through is that, a lot of this is just really huffing and puffing. So, for example, he had written down if Ursula Haverbeck, that is a Holocaust denier who is currently serving in prison. She is 90 years old or something, at least almost 90 years old, sitting in prison for Holocaust denial. Nobody really cares. But he has written down or scribbled, free her when she's in prison. That just as a sentence. It's not like, oh, we have this in this plan, or she's terribly important or something. This really sounds to me, I could, how can I hurt these people? It really does not make a lot of sense what he had scribbled. But then, you find some scrap paper and try to hang somebody for some scrap paper, okay? Another is this biker group that they have to fight this Turkish biker group. I don't think that Ursula Haverbeck would be an asset in a civil war. Neither do I think that this biker group is a real army of the Turkish government that would then be the enemy, which has to be taken out. It's a bit ludicrous. Other examples for random scribblings that are supposedly terror plots is a German Syrian band that is unnamed in the newspaper that appeared on the Würzburger Hafensommer Festival, and he had written down when their appearance was, and that is supposedly a potential target, as well as the radio program Good Morning Deutschland, or maybe it's a station, Radio Good Morning Deutschland, that is something targeted directly to refugees. It is in Arabic, in German and French also, a radio station for refugees. He has written that down, has left a note, and that already makes the Frankfurter Rundschau believe that there could be a terror attack planned for them. Another example would be a note that just says bombing the Rothschild stone in Frankfurt. That's in the calendar. I have absolutely no idea what stone there is in Frankfurt. Then there is an Antifa group, make asylum seeker throw a grenade and film it. That's a very strange note. I don't even know what he might mean with that. They say it is a false flag attack that he is trying to plan, so like toppling the entire state with a vintage gun. Now this is that he is apparently using an asylum seeker throwing a Molotov cocktail. Okay, so that's a different one. Then they have the name Xavier Naidoo in his notes. That is a singer, a pop singer. He is loose up here, but he is not exactly a neo-Nazi. I mean, in Germany, it is very dangerous to actually call somebody an anti-Semite if he is not an outspoken conservative, and Mr. Xavier Naidoo is not a real conservative. So I must not call him an anti-Semite, but I actually do think he is a bit... okay. So for legal reasons, I will not call him an anti-Semite, because if you do so, you are very likely to be taken to court. But it's very unlikely that he would help in a terror plot, or that he would, as the newspaper suggests, maybe help upload a video with the murder on it. No, that's not going to happen, but that's what the media suggests after they found the name Xavier Naidoo in his notes. Police president of Berlin, Klaus Kant, has stated that he sees zero planning effort in all of this. And I think this is also what you probably agree on. It is silly, very far-fetched accusations taken from some scribbles, probably made in anger. I do expect military personnel and security personnel to think of a situation of civil war, to make some random and at least, some little preparations here and there as we are moving forward into an ever more hostile climate, which we are. I actually want people to stash weapons. I'm not stashing weapons myself. But I can, I'm also looking into what chemicals are not terribly good for your eyes, and what things burn quickly and so on, and what blunt objects I would find in my surrounding if an Antifa guy is attacking me. I'm not having any traditional weapons around me, but everybody is preparing in one way or another as things become more hostile. In my last video, we will talk about how little effort is actually put into the appeasement of the situation from the political left. They keep pouring gasoline into the fire and heating up this climate, and expect everybody to simply roll over or getting crazy too quickly so they can eliminate you in time before you get actually dangerous. Even though we are not actually storing weapons or guns necessarily, most of us actually have in mind what they would do if somebody attacks them. And I must say, when somebody goes after me, he will most certainly remember it. I'm not having myself slapped over my head and let somebody get away with it unscathed. That does not make me a terrorist, and I will talk about other people preparing for that situation in my fourth video. The next video will be about the motivations that they ascribe to him, about the thought crimes his master thesis, and what they have found to paint him as a potential neo-Nazi, which he isn't. And I'll see you soon. Bye.